By the time that this video goes out, I think it's been just over a week since the stabbing of Salman Rushdie. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this now. There's been a reasonable amount of distance. This is recorded on a Thursday, just so you know. So if some news comes out in the interim, I haven't missed it. This is coming from the past. So who was he for a start, and why was he controversial? And then we're going to talk about what actually happened to him after the fact. So Salman Rushdie is an Indian-born writer who grew up in Britain. The main controversy about his writing, he's an author. He's written many books, but the one that was controversial was his book, The Satanic Verses, which is what drew the ire of Islam. Mostly, I think, because it had a character that's modelled after the Prophet Muhammad, and this was published all the way back in 1988 in Britain and 1989 in the States.
This has been going on for a very long time.
So, obviously, this is 30 years ago that this was published, and people are still going after him. So,
shockingly enough, the Islamic community is not known for their great forgiveness.
No, it's not exactly one of the virtues of their religion, is it?
No, not as far as I'm aware.
So, the book gets its name from the legend that there were a few verses in the Quran that eventually are withdrawn because the devil deceived Muhammad into thinking they came from God. And you can see why that might be controversial in and of itself. Muslims took the title of the book to mean that Rushdie believed the passages of the book were the work of the devil, as in the entire Quran.
Those two things don't seem to line up completely to me.
Well, yes, these are Muslim fanatics, aren't they? So
Basically,
they're not known for their rationality.
They see it as potentially just a condemnation or insult to their religion.
Well, let's talk about some of the contents of the book. I haven't actually read it myself, but I've been able to pick out some of the controversies within it. For example, he uses the name Mahound for Muhammad as a placeholder, which was used by the English in the Crusades. So thank you for introducing me to a very base term.
That's great.
Mahound. Sounds very Black America, doesn't it? Me and my hound.
It does a little bit, yeah.
That's probably not how it's pronounced, but still. He also used the term Jahiliyyah, denoting the time of ignorance before Islam for the holy city of Mecca. That's its name in his allegorical Islamic world.
Oh, okay.
He uses the name of Angel Gabriel for, obviously that's meant to be Angel Gabriel, very close to the thing, for a film star. So you can see that it's a bit satirical.
Yes.
He uses the name of Saladin, the Muslim hero of the Crusades, for a devil. So we're starting to see here.
I'm starting to understand why this would be controversial around certain communities.
The name of Aisha, the wife of Muhammad, for a fanatical Indian girl who leads her village on a fatal pilgrimage. There's a brothel in the novel that is staffed by women with the same names as Muhammad's wives.
Oh my.
Although, to be fair, in the book it's meant to show how far the degeneration of that city has gone, that you have people named after Muhammad that are running a brothel, but he also has the fact that they're all virgins anyway. So I haven't read the book, so I don't know the context.
A brothel made up of virgins.
I don't really understand the context for it because I haven't read it.
Yeah, but I mean, from this little context that we're getting here, I'm seeing that it's not necessarily something that is condemning entirely one side or the other. It seems to be skirting the line, doing that satirical, almost South Park thing where it's making fun of both sides.
Yeah, and you can certainly see the point I'm trying to make here is that it can certainly be misinterpreted, all of these things. There is also a line in the book which I thought was particularly funny. Rules about every damn thing. If a man farts, let him turn his face to the wind. A rule about which hand to use for the purpose of cleaning one's behind. So obviously that's just complaining about the Quran having too many rules.
Fair.
A libertarian argument against the Quran. That's what we need to hear. But yes, that's why the book is controversial, and it makes me want to read it now more so than before.
I've got it on audiobook, I think, actually, so I should probably listen to it at some point, just to know what all the big fuss is about.
Just listen to it to spite Muslims. I'll just be there, walking around Swindon, looking at all of the Afghans, just thinking they don't know what I'm listening to. They would be so angry at me.
What, like a little child, like, tee-hee.
No.
Mischievous Josh.
That's what I do on my time off. No. Not going to go into it.
He just listens to controversial books and stares at people.
That's right. Menacingly quite often.
Oh, that's your only stare.
So yeah, there were some pretty strong responses from Muslims to the book. So obviously the publisher got lots of angry letters from Muslims. That's not as strong a response as you might expect.
Well,
I'm going to write you this angry worded letter.
That's more of an English response to things, isn't it?
Just have a complain and a whinge.
And then move on. Mm-hmm. Well, they did most of it except the move on part.
That's true, yes. So India banned the import of the book. The book was also banned in Bangladesh, Sudan, South Africa for some reason. I don't know why they were so concerned about it. Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Kenya, Thailand, Tanzania, Indonesia, Singapore, and Venezuela. Virtue signalling from behalf of Venezuela. I don't think they have a large Muslim population.
No, this seems very strange choices of countries there, but...
It is a bit random, isn't it? Obviously, quite a few of these have a Muslim population, so that makes sense. Well, except for South Africa and Venezuela, they're a bit of an outlier. Just like, yes, we're against discrimination now.
How many Muslims are in Singapore?
Quite a few, I think.
Oh, really? Oh, fair play, didn't know.
I'm not entirely sure. I've never been there. But...
I know that the place is obviously very strict. It's basically a police state, a free market police state.
The best kind of police state.
Yeah.
So, on the 2nd of December 1988, 7,000 Muslims in the town of Bolton staged the first ever demonstration against the Satanic Verses, which ended in a book burning. Of course. The city of Bradford, known more recently for its Muslim grooming gangs, mysteriously carried out a public book burning as well. I mean, I couldn't possibly guess who was behind that. It couldn't have possibly been Muslims, both the grooming gangs and the book burnings.
It was probably Brummies, you know. They're a very religiously devout...
What, in Bradford?
Yeah, true.
On the 12th of February 1989, 10,000 protesters took to the streets in Islamabad in Pakistan, and apparently 6 protesters were killed in an attack on the American Culture Centre, and an America Express was ransacked as well. I don't know what America Express has to do with this. They're just like, yes, proud sponsors of Salman Rushdie for some reason.
Islamabad living up to its name.
Yeah. It's very ironic that Pakistan most affected. But yes, the FBI was notified of 78 threats to bookstores in early March 1989. 2 bookstores in Berkeley, California were bombed. The Riverdale press office in New York was destroyed by firebombs for defending people's right to read the book and criticising bookstores for pulling them off the shelves. 2 bookstores in Charing Cross in London were bombed, and then a series of bombings and attempted bombings happened all around the UK in bookstores. So yes, I think it's a little bit before our time, but this was something that most people at the time would be well aware of.
And probably very terrified that it could happen in your local area as well.
Yeah.
And then Tony Blair was like, let's bring more of these people in.
Yes, we need less books, because if people start reading, they might stop voting for me. That's probably what he is thinking.
Well, no, if you read the sorts of books that they put in the front in Waterstones, you probably are going to end up a Labour voter, aren't you?
That's true. So the most important consequence of this is a fatwa by Ayatollah Khomeini, who was at the time the supreme leader of Iran, which called for the death of Rushdie and his publishers. So I'm going to read it. So it says, "We are from Allah to Allah, we shall return. I'm informing all brave Muslims of the world that the author of the Satanic Verses, a text written, edited and published against Islam, the Prophet of Islam, and the Quran, along with the editors and publishers aware of its contents, are condemned to death. I call on all valiant Muslims, wherever the..." I can't even read it properly.
Finger, you're distracting yourself.
I am actually, yeah, it's in my peripheral vision. "I call on all valiant Muslims, wherever they may be in the world, to kill them without delay, so that no one will dare insult the sacred belief of Muslims henceforth, and whoever is killed in this cause will be a martyr, Allah willing. Meanwhile, if someone has access to the author of the book but is incapable of carrying out the execution, he should inform the people so that Rushdie is punished for his actions." So a few days later, Iran's president, Ali Khamenei, not to be confused with Khomeini, suggested that Rushdie apologises and disowns the book and people may forgive him. And his apology was as follows. It was very carefully worded. I think it says, I recognise that Muslims in many parts of the world are genuinely distressed by the publication of my novel. I profoundly regret the distress the publication has occasioned to the sincere followers of Islam, living as we do in a world of many faiths. This experience has served to remind us that we must all be conscious of the sensibilities of others.
So that's, I'm sorry you feel that way.
Yes, it is. The Ayatollah responded, the imperialist foreign media falsely allege that the officials of the Islamic Republic have said the sentence of death on the author of the Satanic Verses will be retracted if he repents. Imam Khomeini has said, this is denied 100%. Even if Salman Rushdie repents and becomes the most pious man of all time, it is incumbent on every Muslim to employ everything he has got, his life and his wealth, to send him to hell.
Bloody hell.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
So yes, after this, though, sales of the book skyrocketed.
Good.
I feel like it certainly made it interesting when you have a fatwa put on you by the Ayatollah of Iran. All of a sudden, people are just like, well, maybe there is something to this book.
This book, I don't know how popular Rushdie was at the time. Probably would...
He had a fair amount of prominence, I think. He had a few well-received books beforehand.
Yeah, but I imagine if it weren't for all of this, most people nowadays, if you went Satanic Verses, would probably not know what on earth you're talking about. Whereas now it's so infamous that,
Absolutely.
it's, like you say, it's led to a lot more people buying it and reading it than it would have otherwise.
So, onto the stabbing itself. There's not really too much to say about what actually happened. I mean, he was on stage, he got stabbed. That's all there really is to it.
It's not good.
No, it's not good. So, here is a BBC article. Iran blames writer and supporters for stabbing. So, yes.
We stabbed you, it's your fault.
Yes. So, Mr. Rushdie, 75, so he's quite an old man at this point, was left severely injured after being stabbed on stage at the event in New York State. He's now able to breathe unaided, so it sounds like he's getting better. However...
That's not a good state to be in, that you couldn't breathe unaided.
I've also heard that he might lose an eye, a kidney, as well as functioning in one arm, so it sounds like it was a very serious attack. It wasn't just he stabbed him once. I think he stabbed him up to 10 times, from what I've heard, although I've not been able to verify.
I've heard similar. I've heard it was between 12 and 15 times, but that might just be gradual exaggeration.
It's also worth mentioning that Iran state broadcaster Daily Jammy Jam, that's their really name. Is that
his MC name? MC Jammy Jam.
That's really their name. I couldn't believe it when I read it. It sounds like some sort of weird baby English for that a parent would use towards their child to say, put on your pajamas.
Oh yeah, it's baby talk.
This outlet, this state broadcaster said, an eye of Satan has been blinded in response to the notion that he might lose an eye. So yes,
they're still very, very happy that this happened. And they're probably just annoyed it didn't go far enough.
So if we move on to the next one here, we can see this is the aftermath at the event he was speaking at. You can only really see just people crowding around him. Obviously, I don't want to show footage of the actual stabbing because I don't think that's either nice to look at. You can't really get much out of it.
Yeah, we all know what's happened. We don't need to see it.
Exactly. So yes, there it is. It's quite a packed building, really. It's surprising that he was able to get away with it. But I did see some people with a black eye, so maybe he jumped the security.
Possibly. Was the man caught?
I think he was, yes.
I would hope so, given such a crowded venue.
So, if we move on to the CBS News article, Salman Rushdie's stabbing suspect charged with attempted murder as author remains hospitalised with serious wounds. So, the man accused of carrying out a stabbing attack against the Satanic Verses author Salman Rushdie has entered a not guilty plea. I don't know how you can plead not guilty in a room full of witnesses.
You've got a nice selection of witnesses. You're not going to struggle to find people to testify.
Not guilty plea in a New York court on a charge of attempted murder and assault. I think the attempted murder will obviously be Salman Rushdie, and he assaulted some of the security and other people there. An attorney of Hadi Matar, so this is the guy who did it, 24 years old, entered the plea on his behalf during an arraignment hearing. Matar appeared in court wearing a black and white jumpsuit and a white face mask. His hands were cuffed in front of him. So yes, if you haven't figured out already, he's definitely Islamic. Hadi Matar. I don't think that's
A classic British name?
well, it's in New York, so I'd be surprised there were many British names left there, but there we go. So, as I alluded to earlier, here is the Independent saying that sales of the Satanic Verses surge after Salman Rushdie stabbing, and it even got to the point where here on Fortune, the Satanic Verses tops Amazon's bestsellers list after author Salman Rushdie is stabbed. And that, I think that it's quite nice that people are trying to support him after this, because he hasn't done anything wrong, has he? All he did was poke fun of Islam a little bit, not even directly disrespectfully.
It sounds like the book sounds like it was mainly just trying to be a bit cheeky.
Yes.
Like the old English idea of, I can poke fun at my mates and be a bit cheeky with them, that sort of thing. That's what it, from the description that you gave and some of the quotes, that's what it sounded like to me. But Islam can brook no criticism.
Yes, and this is the sort of double standard that we have in the West, that lots of other things are okay to criticise, but as soon as you criticise Islam and someone violently attacks you, well, you've brought it on yourself. And I saw many Muslim commentators just refusing to condemn the attack.
Well, no, they're actively supporting it, actively celebrating it. Do you see any Western leaders condemning this attack?
I didn't necessarily look for that, but I'm pretty sure that they did. I know that Boris Johnson did, yeah.
Oh, okay, but once again, pithy words do very little. Their words get a man stabbed over 30 years after the fact. Boris Johnson comes out and says, this is a very bad thing that's happened. Anyway, keep the floodgates open, lads.
Well, yeah. I mean, the best thing you could do is stop Muslims emigrating to Western countries where they can't possibly integrate because their beliefs are antithetical to civilization, would be my argument. And I mean, I don't know why people are so accommodating for Muslims in general, because what's their impact been on Britain? They've formed grooming gangs, they've carried out massive terror attacks, they form enclaves, they target children, British Pakistanis make up 1/3 of all cases of childhood deformities because of their penchant for inbreeding. We don't need this in our country.
Don't. Our country is actively devalued through all of this, and our culture is being destroyed and swept up to make way for this and other leftist causes. Fantastic.
So I thought I would end on a quote from Salman Rushdie after the Charlie Hebdo attack. And here he says, "Respect for religion has become a code phrase meaning fear of religion. Religions, like any other, deserve criticism, satire, and yes, our fearless disrespect."
If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast of Lotus Eaters, you can go over to lotuseaters.com to get all the premium content on our website, such as John Wheatley and I are discussing the politics and philosophy of Studio Ghibli. I promise I'm not a weeb. If you'd like to follow the rest of the content I'm putting out, you can go over to Getter and follow me at @con_Tomlinson. Thank you and goodbye.